laughing at my misfortune. You don't say that kind of thing about your dad. Like, I've been really good talking up until now, and then I start talking about David, and I go, oh, crap. I've got an achy bum where I've been sitting on. I've actually dented the chair. I sound like a right old sad sod, don't I? If I surprise you with some weird, freaky, spooky kind of word, it's a dare. Let me be a star while I still am, all right? Shut up, we are recording. Everybody does think that because of the character that I have in the Spice Girls as Posh Spice, that all I can do is go shopping and wear high heels, and that I'm a miserable cow who bosses David around. And there is a lot more to me than that, and I think slowly people are seeing that. Look at me, trying to look like I'm doing something. I started dancing when I was about 3 years old, and I just loved it. I think my mum and dad thought I was a bit hyperactive. And my ballet teacher, the first thing she ever said to my mum was she'd be a beautiful dancer if only we could stick somebody else's head on her shoulders, because I didn't want to bother with what all the arm positions are called. I just wanted to dance, and I just wanted to do, even then, what I loved doing. And I used to put on shows for everybody, and I used to say to everybody, now, this is what we're going to do. Like I was a bossy little cow even then, so nothing's changed. And my mum made me a skirt that kind of ripped off, like the girls from Bucks Fizz used to have. And I used to make all the children sit down and watch me while I did a show. My mum was a big Barry Manilow fan, and there was another girl at school called Amanda Towers, whose mum was a Barry Manilow fan. And we used to be friends at school because I always wanted to be her. She was allowed to wear high heels, and her school skirts were shorter than everybody else's. And she was one of the pretty kids at school, and she wore glasses, and I really wanted to wear glasses and wear high heels, and she had lovely skin, and she was very, very popular at school. And we became friends, and my mum and her mum became friends, and they were both Barry Manilow fans. And I remember they used to take us all over the place to see Barry Manilow. I mean, I remember sitting at Blenheim Palace, sitting in a pile of sheep shit, watching bloody Barry Manilow in the pissing down rain, still thinking, wow, I want to do that. You know, this is amazing. I remember writing to Jim Will Fix It once, saying, could I be in the choir? Because, you know, he used to sing a song called One Voice, and he used to have a choir that stood behind him, and I think they all used to hold, like, candles or whatever it was, and I wanted to be in the choir and just stand on the stage with him. I was absolutely mad on Bros. I remember crying to my mum saying, yeah, but you don't understand. You just clearly don't understand. I want to marry Matt Goss. And my mum said, no, but you don't understand. I was going to marry Paul McCartney. So I was in the lift. I went down, when was it? A few months ago, wasn't it? And it got stuck. Every year they used to do a school play, and this particular year it was going to be Frosty the Snowman, and I wanted to be the snowman because I always had to have the main part. And I thought, well, the best way to get the part is to say that I've already got the outfit, so I did. And I said, I've got a snowman outfit. So then I went home and my mum had to make me one. And if I didn't get it, I knew Amanda Towers or Amanda Davis would, and I wasn't going to have that. And funny enough, one year there was a play, and there just wasn't a real, the part just wasn't right for me. So so I threw such a wobbly at school that they let me open the show with doing the fame dance or something like that. It was just so not relevant at all. And I had this purple leotard and purple little skirt on, but I just had to have a part in it. So I opened the show.
It was being a bit dramatic.
We were having a panic attack though. I went to see Fame, I think it was Wembley, and I just loved it because I always knew I wanted to be on the stage, and I knew that I'd love to do concerts, but I never knew how I was going to do it because I wasn't singing, I was just dancing. But when I went to see Fame, I thought, hey look, I can sing and dance at the same time. And I mean, I was so into it. I mean, I had a Fame tracksuit, and my sister had one in another colour, and I had leg warmers. I even had a Fame bag, everything with Fame on it, sweatbands, wristbands, trainers. I dumped the Barry Manilow shoelaces and got out the Fame shoelaces. I was in the fan club, you know, the sticker books that you get. I was absolutely obsessed with it. That was what I wanted to do. People used to beat me up at school because I sound like a right old sad sod, don't I? But, you know, because it wasn't cool that I was dancing and, you know, that kind of thing. And people didn't like that. I mean, I remember people dragging me with my school bag down the drive. And, you know, just sort of like pushing me all over the place. And I remember standing in the playground at school, and my mum always used to dress me so properly for school. So of course, when you had to have a school coat, everybody had school Macs, but of course I had a duffel coat with the hood. And I mean, it was a proper Paddington Bear thing, with like these big old kind of toggles that did up from right to the bottom, right to the top. And I remember standing in the corner of the playground on my own, and it was raining, and there were puddles everywhere. And I remember the kids just picking things up out of the puddles and just throwing them at me. And I know you will want to laugh. Go on, everybody have a laugh.
Cut.
I'm glad we are all laughing at my misfortune. I was pig ugly and nobody wanted to even kiss me on the cheek. But no, I had one boyfriend at school. Have I told you about this?
A little bit, I think we're ready.
He was the vicar's son. Come on, away in the corner laughing. Shut up, we are recording.
Yeah, who was the vicar's son?
He was the vicar's son, and it was Valentine's Day, and he put Valentine's cards in every single room that I was going to go to that day for my class, which was really romantic and sweet. And then he invited me out, but nobody actually believed that he was going to actually go out with me, so they all turned up at the pictures to see us together. So my mum drops me off at his house, and I knock on the door, and his dad opens the door, the reverend, whoever he was, and then runs down the stairs in, let me tell you what he had on, a Star Wars t-shirt with a checkered kind of lumberjack shirt undone on top, jeans that are kind of, what chest are those jeans, sir, tight rounded you know what, didn't reach the floor, and trainers that turned up, that were kind of like, what were they like, when they was kind of like plimsolly on the bottom,
Yeah.
and they was wrinkled up, and it was so embarrassing, and then we got the bus, and it was the longest bus journey of my life, and we went to Waltham Cross, and we went to the pictures, and of course everyone was there because I didn't believe anybody had possibly wanted to go out with me. I had to walk in with this guy that was dressed very American, to say the least. But he was really, really sweet, very, very sweet person. And then I went back to his house, and he gave me a little necklace, a cross, that was really, you know, it's the first thing a boy had ever bought me, and I was really over the moon. But of course my sister started saying, oh God, I bet you got loads free with confirmation, you got like a job lot or something. And then I got in the bath, and of course my neck has never quite recovered from the green kind of mould that kind of settled on it. But yeah, that was my one boyfriend at school. Well, I went out with this guy, Mark Wood, he was an alarm engineer, and he was older, and he had a car. It's actually a van, and it actually had ladders on the roof, but it was still 4 wheels. So to me it was like, wow, I've got a boyfriend and he's got transport. So it was, you know, very exciting. I thought my heart had been broken when he split up with me. I mean, goodness, when someone finishes with you, you really do think it's the end of the world, don't you? I mean, it's like you feel like you are about to drop dead. My mum took me to Lakeside to try and make me feel better, and my sister walked around while I was crying, standing next to me saying, what are you crying for? He's a and I was like, no, you don't understand, I'm going to die. You know, I really felt like I was dying. And, yeah, you know, so I think that there's a strong message there, you know. You know, you do get over it, basically. Well, men always fancied Jerry with the big boobs and the red hair, or Mel B, you know, with the curly hair, or Emma, who sort of like looks like a kid. You know, I think me and Melanie C weren't really the two that the men used to kind of, you know. But, you know, I got the best man, didn't I?
Stop. Slow down.
My dreams, people tried to batter them out of me when I was younger at school. And I think that's terrible. And I want to do whatever I can to young kids to say, do you know what, go for it. If you want to be a spaceman, that's cool. You can do that. Work hard enough. Next. My mum and dad would never let me go to a stage school because they didn't want me to board. And I think it was probably because they couldn't have afforded it. And when you're young, you don't realise that, and you're just saying, why? I want to go to a big stage school, you know, like Emma did.
Yeah.
Because everybody that was in shows in the West End, you know, you'd look at the programme when the show finished, and they all went to a stage school. And I was saying, yeah, but it's never going to happen to me unless I go to one of these stage schools. But they didn't want me to. I ended up in Broxbourne, not quite New York. Had I been in New York, though, it might all be different. You know, and I used to phone home. I remember the phone box outside the college, and I used to ring and say, oh, you know, more auditions have come up, and they won't even let me audition. And I used to get really upset because I was working so bloody hard. And my mum used to say, come home and we'll go to Lakeside and buy a pair of shoes. And yet if my dad answered the phone, he'd say, well, go in there and work harder because you'll do it next year. And I think that that's where I got my drive from, was my dad, who has always been so ambitious. You know, I mean, my mum and dad, who started off with nothing, now have a lovely house, nice cars, and I think people think that that's come from me, but it hasn't. My dad has worked his balls off for everything that he's got. God, that sounded awful then. My dad's worked his balls off. You don't say that kind of thing about your dad. My dad's worked incredibly hard for everything that he's got. He really has. I mean, when he first started up his company, his ambition was to have a Rolls Royce. And he said, I'm going to have a Rolls Royce. And he did. And it's haunted me forever, but he did have one. You know, and I think that's where I get it from. It's because whenever I get down, I think, no. That's why when people say to me now, why do you put up with everything that you put up with? I say, I'm used to it. I've had that for a long, long time. People telling me I'm not good enough, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I've got horrible skin, my hair, whatever. This is nothing new. Everything everyone's saying about me, I was getting in the playground when I was 5 years old. It's just on a larger scale now. I don't have spots anymore at the minute. And I was banging on the door saying, help! I was like properly freaking out, wasn't I? And there's a camera in the lift. Well, I was definitely not one of the best at lanes. You know, the standard was very, very high. So I had to work very, very hard just to keep my head above water from day one there. They were very conscious of what you looked like there as well. And at the time you don't understand why. But I suppose when you come to leave you realise why. Because it's part of the job. You have to look a certain way to get the jobs. I mean, when I did Pas de Deux, I mean, the guys didn't exactly collapse, or I didn't break anyone's backs. I mean, I wasn't like, I think everybody has this vision of me as being really big. I wasn't, but you are very self-conscious, you know, because for the first time I was in the studio, it had wooden floors and mirrors everywhere. And of course, when there's mirrors everywhere and you're standing there in next to nothing but a leotard and tights, you do tend to think, oh, bit of bum there, double chin going on. That's human nature, I think. I was aware that I could probably do with losing weight, but I didn't do anything about it. You know, I was a 16, 17-year-old girl who, I liked crisps, I liked chocolate, and if being a little bit bigger was going to mean that that's the way it was, that was it. I wasn't prepared to stop eating for that. I just really feel for girls who want to become performers. I really do, because I've been through it myself, and if I have a daughter, I hope she doesn't want to do it. I really do. If she wants to be a singer, that's fine. But I hope she doesn't want to do that, because it is very, very dangerous. I mean, I should have come out of that college a better dancer than I did, just because of the sheer hard work and the lessons. I think that I really could have done with a bit of the moral support and the push that they gave me at Jason Theatre School, really. 6 firemen came running up the stairs. Mrs. Beckham stuck in a lift. There's this newspaper called The Stage Paper, which is like a normal newspaper, but it's full of auditions and, you know, cruises, West End shows. So I'm looking through the stage, and there's an audition for Bertie, which was a musical that was going to start in Birmingham and then tour, and then possibly go to the West End. So I auditioned for it, and everybody said, you know, why are you bothering going? There's no point. And all the favourites went from lanes. And I went and I got it, and none of them did. And that was pretty satisfying.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was.
Oh, do you like that?
Don't think of me that way. I'm not such an innocent girl.
I was doing some promotion for the Daily Mirror, and I remember my sister was doing it with me, and I used to have to give out leaflets dressed in sort of like a real tight-fitted t-shirt that said Daily Mirror across your boobs and a baseball cap, and they made you wear like tight leggings and high heels. And I think it was, they used to pay not bad, it was like £30 a day for giving out these leaflets and stuff. And a lot of girls used to do that were dancers or models. You had to go to, they gave you pages and pages of lists of newsagents all round London. And you actually, it wasn't just like find any old newsagent, you had an address. And, you know, most people would do like 5 a day. And they said to me, well, look, we've got about 500 of these. If you will do them all in a week, we'll pay you X amount of money. And I thought, yeah, well, that can't be too hard. You know, get an A to Z, get in the car, get around all these places, and that's great. So I did it. And then I discovered that I couldn't do it on my own, so it was too difficult. So I got my sister and my sister's boyfriend at the time to help. Because I thought, right, well, OK, we can pay him out of the money to do the driving. Then me and my sister can sit in the back, and we can do a shop each. And you had to get out in your Daily Mirror T-shirt, and you had to go in and you had to say, hi, you've won a special award. And it was like a pen or a T-shirt or something. And it was quite funny because there's me all enthusiastic and right, we'll get up at 5 o'clock to beat the traffic and we'll get to Surrey and we will break the back of this and we'll get it all done by about 9 o'clock tonight. Then we can come home, have a few hours sleep and then start again in the morning. So we'd be driving round and it got to the stage where my sister refused to get out the car. I was like, Louise, this is your turn. Bugger off, I've got a bad back. But she wanted the money, but she didn't want to put any of the hard work in. I used to promote anything. I opened up the Wicks shop in Waltham Cross once, dressed in a tracksuit that said Wicks, and I had balloons that I had to give to all the kids. Camera shops, shopping centres, the Harley Quinn Centre in Watford. I worked at Lakeside in the perfume department. That's why whenever I go to a shop now and somebody tries to kind of squirt me with the perfume, I will always let them do that because I know how it feels. I used to squirt, that sounds a bit rude. I used to squirt champagne, and I used to have to stand there and say, good afternoon, would you like to try some champagne? And the amount of rude people there are out there, it's unbelievable. I feel so sorry for girls that do that. They don't want to be doing that. They're probably just doing it sort of like as a bit of a part-time or when they're off of college or something like that. And when I got my first paycheck, I went with my sister and queued up outside the Patrick Cox shop in Sloane Square. And the bizarre thing is that I know Patrick now as a friend, and it's actually quite funny because we had a pair of wannabes, white wannabes, slingbacks, and we used to share them. Do you remember when we met Brittany? How starstruck was I?
You were very starstruck.
I was so starstruck. I just think she's fantastic.
And Brooklyn decided to give her a kiss.
I mean, I remember standing on the stage crucifying this song. I mean, God, if you think I can't sing now, you should have heard me then. I crucified Wind Beneath My Wings or something. I really did. And I remember just standing on the stage with my hands on my hips and saying, no, but I can sing, really. I can. Give me another chance. Because I was just terrible. So bad. But I think that they obviously saw the drive that I had. I could dance. We had to put a little dance routine together. I could dance. I looked okay. Very girl next door. You know, they didn't want anybody that was too good looking. They wanted girls that looked like normal girls. I was kind of in awe that all the girls were so extrovert. I remember Melanie B and Jerry used to wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and decide, let's go to a club. And they get dressed and they go to a club. Whereas if they'd woken me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, let's go to a club, I'd have sod off, you know, because they were very spontaneous. They were good fun. They were always up for a laugh. The other girls, especially Melanie B and Jerry, were the two that really got the bad press right at the start, because, you know, they'd had more boyfriends. I'd actually lived quite a sheltered life, really. I mean, apart from Mark Wood, there wasn't really a lot that really could probably be said. Not, you know, the other girls, I always used to joke and say they've had a lot more of an interesting life than I have. So they were the first to really get stick. So when I actually read this thing about that Mark Wood had sold about me, I mean, I was very embarrassed. I mean, I still wouldn't talk about sex in front of my dad. You know, I mean, it's not because you wouldn't dare to. It's just that that's my dad, and I wouldn't. So when my dad opens a newspaper and sees we had sex on a fast-speeding train, and I wouldn't even mind, but it didn't even happen. Do you know what I mean? I was just very embarrassed because my parents were reading that. Also, you know, I think it's hurtful because we split up, and you know, I'd sent him cards. You know, I wrote him a card that said, I don't know, something like, "Happy birthday, lots of love, your little pop star." You know, because I always dreamed that I would be a pop star. And he sold that to the newspaper, and that's like the card that I sent him has been printed in the newspaper. And I just thought that was, to me, that's a bit personal. It made me realise then that I would like to say, I don't mean everybody, because everybody doesn't have a price, but most people have a price, which is a bit sad, really. And I think the other girls taught me a lot about my personality, made me realise more about myself, really. I mean, I remember when we were looking for our record deal, and we would go to the record companies, and all the girls would jump on the table and dance and sing "Wannabe" for everybody, and I would be the one that would be checking that the table wasn't going to give in, because I didn't have the bollocks to get up and dance on that table. I would now, you know, and I think that they brought that out of me, that fun side out of me, really, that if I hadn't have met them, I don't know that I would have. I mean, I think that the electricity between us was amazing. I mean, we were 5 girls who were going to conquer the world, and nothing was going to stop us, and nothing did, and we did. You know, it was amazing. We took over everywhere that we went. Parties, record companies, restaurants, everywhere we went. And everybody, you know, we never stayed anywhere too long. We were in and we were out. And it was, oh my God, the Spice Girls. But they were very, very loud, you know, and that was, I mean, I look back at interviews that we did, and I think, oh my goodness, how did anybody watch this?
Stop, slow down, take a deep breath.
I'm like, I've got an achy bum where I've been sitting on. I've actually dented the chair.
And I'm thinking, this is so not rock and roll.
No, it shouldn't be like that. Not fooling me.
Simon, I remember the first time we saw him, he had on a pair of very neat jeans, and he had a lilac shirt on, and he had black hair, and he was very, very clean looking, and he had very shiny shoes on. And he had all of his discs up round the wall, you know, Annie Lennox, Kathy Dennis, and we walked in and he wasn't there. So we was taken into his office, where we sat down, and when we were sitting, he then walked in. You see, he's very clever. And I think he did a great job with us. I mean, I think we had a lot more to do with it than we are given credit. But then that's purely because he was a man, and I think that people find it hard to believe that 5 girls were actually in control of their own destiny. And we did write the songs, and we did make up the dance moves, and we did dress ourselves. And we did go to him with a lot of the first album already demoed, songs already written. But he marketed that well, and I think that with him and Virgin together, they marketed us very, very well internationally. You know, I mean, we had a #1 record in America. You know, and the great thing is that with 5 of you, if one of you's feeling a bit down, the other 4 would pick you up, you know. If we were out and anybody decided to be nasty about one of us, the other 4 were there. What were you doing? You know, we stuck up for each other. We lived like sisters. You know, we really did. I think I was in the background really through all of the Spice Girls, really. I don't find it as easy as the other girls to be loud and all the rest of it. You know, they're great at that. I am a bit more of a reserved personality most of the time. You know, sometimes it will come out, but you know, I don't find it as easy. I'm not as confident, I suppose. That's the bottom line. We'd get up, I don't know, 5, 6 in the morning, maybe, fly to another country, work for the whole day, get back. I mean, I remember quite a few times, because my mum reminded me of it the other day, I used to actually come home in the middle of the night, have just about enough time to unpack my clothes, put new clothes in my case, and then I would get picked up and go again. Probably only really come out of how shy I am the last couple of years, because even being with the Spice Girls, I never really spoke a lot in interviews. I never really sang a lot on the records, you know, because there were 4 girls who are very, very bubbly and fantastic personalities. And as much as I was kind of like that in private, I didn't really want anyone to see that. I realised the success that we had had when I started trying to do it on my own. And when you've got 4 other people with you and you are part of a phenomenon and everything that you touch turns to gold, it's not until you're on your own and you're trying that you realise how out of the ordinary that success actually is. Make sure you haven't got sweat patches.
I don't have sweat patches.
You've got a bit of one going on there.
Have I? No, I haven't.
I'll shield it. Well, I'd been actually in a box watching the game, and I'm meant to wear glasses. So I actually spent the whole game watching the wrong player, and in actual fact the wrong team, because they was in an away. Actually, no, they was in their away kit. So I was getting very confused. I mean, this is someone who knows nothing about football. But then Simon introduced me to David afterwards, and what I liked about him is all the other players were standing at the bar and chatting to sort of like friends and all the rest of it, and David was all on his own and he was standing talking to his family, and I really liked that because I'm very close to my family, and I always wanted to meet somebody who was like, as naff as it sounds really, my dad and my brother. I didn't want a pub man, not that there's anything wrong in that, but I did want someone who was very family orientated, so that was the initial attraction, you know. And I think I've done wonders with him, haven't I? Did you see the state on his hair? Bless him. We always joke with each other and say, my God, what did you look like when I first met you? We actually, myself and Melanie C were at the game together, and we got asked to do the half-time draw. So I sort of like went onto the pitch, and there's 55,000 people, and they all started chanting to Mel C, you scouse bastard, you scouse bastard. So of course she turns round and sort of like sticks her fingers up in front of everyone, and I have to read out the half-time scores for the other games that have gone on. So of course, not knowing anything about football, I was like, Derby won, the other team didn't. You know, I was like completely had no idea whatsoever. It's actually probably quite cringeable. I do believe in love at first sight, and I did know from the first time that I met him that I was going to end up with him. I get embarrassed saying that. But no, I mean, I sort of, I don't know, I'm getting all of it. Like, I've been really good talking up until now, and then I start talking about David, and I go, oh, crap. He sent me a Prada handbag, because he'd read that I liked designer clothes, so he sent me a Prada handbag. It's quite funny, because he didn't know what my surname was, so he got his sister to go and buy Smash Hits and have a look through to find out some more information on me, and he went and got a CD to do his homework. He was really, really shy, and I said to my mum and dad that they had to get out of bed and come and see him. So my mum comes down the stairs in her dressing gown and says, oh, hi, you're the dodgy footballer, or something like that. I've just got to come and have a look at you, or something like that. You know, my mum is very, very blunt, shall we say, says what she thinks. And he was really embarrassed and didn't say a lot. In the book I say how we used to meet in car parks. It sounds really seedy and it sounds like, I don't know, there's all lots of shag nasties going on in the back of a whatever. It was not like that at all. It was just nice. You just used to sit there and talk for hours and hours and hours. He's always been really talkative to me. I mean, people will criticise him and say he's not particularly fluent and that he doesn't say a lot in interviews. But he's shy, you know. He's very deep and he is very intelligent. I couldn't be with somebody who had nothing inside and who was the person that people portray David Beckham to be. You know, he's very deep, he's very caring, he's very intelligent, and if I want advice, he's the first person I'll ask.
When I was away and she was in America, and I was on a coach full of all the rest of the players, and she told me that she was pregnant, and that was just, I think, well, I'll always remember that.
When David came out to see me, I'd been saying to him that when I was in New York, before he actually got out there, I'd seen a really nice top that I wanted, and it said Brazil on the back, and it was like a Brazilian sweatshirt. I said, oh yeah, I think I might get it, and he said, no, you bloody won't. And I said, no, I really, really want this. No, you bloody won't. So then he comes out to see me, and gives me a present, and it's this Brazilian shirt that he's gone and bought. So I was really, really pleased with this shirt. So I put it on one morning, and I was feeling so morning sick. I put it on, and I've got on this blooming plain, no makeup on, hair all over the place, this Brazilian shirt, and I think I had my pyjama bottoms and slippers on. I was feeling so sick. And we took off, and I just went, bleh, and I just threw up over the whole thing, and David, bless him, was getting the sick out with his hands. I was just sick everywhere, all over my brand new Brazilian shirt. But it was a really lonely time for me on tour as well, because when all the press found out that I was pregnant, they actually got an incredibly unflattering photograph of me from when I was sitting round by the side of a pool at the Four Seasons in Los Angeles, and I was on the phone, and I just got out the pool, so I had like curly hair all over the place. I was obviously starting to show that I was a bit pregnant, and it was the worst picture I have ever had in the newspapers. It was vile. And I'm on the phone, so I've got this big old double chin going on, and they just put it on the front page and said pregnant spice or something like that. And so I spoke to David, and I said to David, there's a picture of you saying that, you know, we're pregnant. And I said, what's the picture like? And he said, I can't lie, babes, it's the most terrible picture I've ever seen of anybody. If you was to say to me the best thing that's ever happened in my life, it would be having Brooklyn, without a doubt. I love being pregnant, but then I was pregnant in a bit of a designer way. I was very lucky. I mean, I literally was just a bump. I'd never be that lucky next time. But, you know, it doesn't matter, does it? You're pregnant and you're having a baby, and it's amazing. My bag was ready at the door from about the first 2 months, you know, getting all the baby grows, decorating the room, picking the names.
So you're looking forward to the next one?
I can't wait. People will always try and catch me out, and I can be quick sometimes, but then other times I'll admit it, I can't be. And I just say something, and then I have to deal with the consequences.
No tricks, no games, just me.
That was awful. I mean, like I said, you know, I think that David is the one person that is mine. No one can touch him. And I think that, you know, every time you get these girls who say, I had a rollabout affair with someone, that someone has 9 times out of 10 got a wife, a family, children, and I don't know what kind of person it takes to do that kind of thing. But I think that they've got some pretty bad karma coming their way. I felt really sorry for David. I mean, I do now. At the time, I didn't. Because as much as you can trust someone, some body has put that element of doubt in your mind. And I was 7 months pregnant, and I was no short of devastated, completely devastated. If I hadn't have been pregnant, I hate to think what I'd have done. Because, I mean, I'm not a majorly jealous person, but I was incredibly upset about that. I felt like my whole life had ended. I mean, I actually physically beat him up, punched him in the face. But to try and make me feel better, we, when all that was going on, because there was loads of press outside the house and it was a nightmare. And I went to the garage to get some drinks, and loads of people were screaming at me, how are the page 3 slags? And, I was getting abuse when I went out, people that found it really funny to say things like that. And so we all decided to get in the car. And no wonder I get this shopping tag attached to me. And my mum and dad decide to take me to Brent Cross to try and cheer me up. And Marie Louise was with us, and my sister, and I think my brother, and we all got in the car, and we went to Brent Cross. And walking around, and do you remember in Spice World, the movie, there was some, like, stripper men, there were some strippers. Well, one of these strippers sold a story on Emma, saying how they had sex and had a relationship, and it was complete crap. She didn't even speak to him apart from, hi, I'm Emma, thanks for doing the film. Well, anyway, we bump into him when we're actually out on this trip to Brent Cross. So, of course, I walk past him and I recognise him. And he goes, hi, and I go, hi. And then I realise, this is a guy who's been in our film, got loads of publicity out of saying that he's had some intimate relationship with my friend, and he hasn't. So that's all I need, the kind of mood I'm in. So I turn round and absolutely, well, I mean, I absolutely freaked out. I had a whole audience. They all circled round me and watched. And his poor girlfriend was standing there going, oh, don't do this. And I went, and you poor cow. And then I laid into her. And nobody knew quite what to do with me. I mean, I think that he was just wrong place, wrong time. A lot of people think, and I've said this before, that I ask for everything that I get. And I can honestly say I don't think I do. I'm not going to sit here and complain about it, but I don't think that I do. And people say, yeah, but you let people into your private life. So I sold my wedding pictures to a magazine, which I wouldn't do now. I'm not saying that it was a mistake, because it wasn't. At the time, it was great. It really, really was. But apart from that, I can't see how I sell myself. I've written an autobiography, but I can't see where people get that from. People think yeah, I've just bought David a Ferrari. I've just spent this much money on this. I've just done this. I mean, I read the other day how I stormed out of Burger King, threw down my Whopper, and left. Well, I haven't been in Burger King for a long time, and I've been a vegetarian for 15 years, so get your breath on that. Threw down my Whopper. I've got 2 Whoppers, but I'm going to throw them. Do you know what I mean? But people will still pick that up and say, oh, look at her throwing a fit, silly cow. How I push to the front of queues in supermarkets because I don't want to queue up. I would never do that.
Stop, slow down, take a deep breath.
The Spice Girls made me realise I can be a working mum. I wouldn't have thought I could do that if it wasn't for the Spice Girls. I mean, that's the ultimate in girl power, isn't it? Oh, what about when I cooked that, was it pork? And cooked it for like 4 hours and it still wasn't done. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, then you realised that it had gone off 2 weeks ago.
Or was it chicken? But you ate it and you was all right.
No, I didn't eat it.
Thank God. No, what was it
It
that
went
I
black.
cooked?
It went black. It was pork. It had been off for about 2 weeks and you decided to give me it anyway.
It's about getting the
Well, I'll tell you
temperature
what
right
you've
in the
done.
oven,
You cooked
isn't
it from
You can
frozen.
burn it on the outside.
You
That's
cooked it from
It
frozen.
wasn't off. I just cooked
No,
it
it
from
was off.
frozen.
It was from last year. It was last year or something.
Good job I burnt it, because if it had
Did you-
been
did
cooked
you?
well, you'd have actually eaten it. You might not be here to tell the story.
The heart's got a mind of its own. Won't listen to a word I say.
Well, my mum used to try and put makeup on me when I was about 10 years old. I remember she used to get her lipstick, because I was very, very pale. This was before I discovered Saint-Tropez. And she used to get her lipstick, and she used to sort of put it on my cheeks and rub it in to try and sort of make me look a little bit more as if I was alive, I suppose. I had big black eyes, and I did always have really bad skin. It wasn't actually until I finished writing my book that I realised how self-conscious I was about it, because whenever I would describe someone, I would start with their skin, you know, and you don't realise, you know, oh yeah, she was, I don't know how tall, and she had great skin. And that's something that most people wouldn't even really notice. You know, I'm not a fashion victim. I like to think that I wear things that suit me, usually quite plain things that are timeless. You know, but I will dress very, very smart. But then I dress in a kind of bit more of a casual way as well. Like, I mean, you've caught me in my combats and jean jacket and hat. So I just dress in a way that suits me, I think. The one thing I can't deal with, right, letting you into a secret here, I know how to dress, but my colour coordination is absolutely shocking. I have to buy things together because I cannot colour coordinate at all. You should see Brooklyn when I've dressed him. David always said, my goodness, because I have no idea with colours. When people actually meet me, they actually say, you're completely different to what we imagined. I actually quite like you, which I suppose you have to take as flattering. I mean, I think sometimes I walk into a room and I don't think people know quite what to expect. They think I'm going to be a pain in the arse. People do think that. You know, I am very much aware of people's preconceptions, so much so. And I sometimes feel like I am banging my head on a brick wall. I really do. I've worked bloody hard on my record, and it is a good record. The album reviews have said, this is a good record. And still people have these preconceptions. And as long as I know that, I think I can knock them down. And I will try as hard as I can to knock them down and make people listen to the record. I mean, I've just come to accept it now. You know, I brought this record out and everyone was saying, oh, can she sing live? No, she can't, she's miming all the time. So I go on Parkinson and I sing live, yeah. I think 11 million people watched that show. And do you know how many newspapers actually wrote that I sang live? None. I can take constructive criticism, but when people will just be downright nasty and bitchy and try and ruin everything that I have worked hard for, I sometimes find that difficult because I think, okay, if you don't like my music, fine. If you don't like, I don't know, my book, fine. But I think I have a really positive message for children. That's the kind of thing I want my son to be thinking, yeah, I can do that. You know, people say, is this being a solo artist, you know, lonely? I mean, for me personally, it's great because, I mean, I recorded the whole album with Brooklyn on one hip. You know, I had my mum or David's mum there with me. I had a creche that I created in the corner of the studio. When I go away, most of the time I take Brooklyn with me. But you know what's really great is even now, it's like after, because David's been away, so he hasn't seen a lot of the performances. Like today, my mum gave David's mum a tape to bring up here, and it was my CD UK performances for the last couple of weeks, and he hadn't actually seen them. And I was all excited to show you, wasn't I? But
They get better and better every time I see them. My album that I bought's unbelievable, isn't it?
what one's that?
Coffee Brown.
Yeah. The Victoria Beckham album's even better, babe.
It is a lot better, actually.
I think I've been overexposed. I mean, when I started writing this book 2 years ago, we always knew when the book was going to come out. But when we started writing an album, we never knew when the album was going to come out. And it was basically just pure coincidence that they came out at the same time. And I think that, you know, overexposure is a problem, is something that I face. And I don't know what to do about that. I do not know. I have to find someone to deal with that and turn it all round. That's the horrible thing about going home, is when you don't know when you're going to come back again.
I know.
It's like when I was working on the album and the book, I spent so much time wanting to be performing, and, you know, I really, really love doing all of that, but when I come home, I just think I'd love just like a few days to kind of just be with David and Brooklyn, all three of us together. But I don't really want to go back now.
Don't.
Got to. You know what I'm really looking forward to? I'm looking forward to going to bed with my husband every night and waking up with him every night, every morning, and having dinner together every night, which at the moment is something that a lot of people have that we don't, because we're both very busy, and we have to spend a lot of time apart, but it's not always going to be like that. And I'm really looking forward to spending more and more time together. Having more children, I'm really looking forward to that at some point. And standing strong and saying that I achieved success as a solo artist. Be it now, be it in 6 months, I know that in 3 years' time, I will do it. Because up until now, when I set my mind to something, I will do my absolute utmost to achieve that. And I will. Just give me a bit of time. But no, when I do say these silly things, you know, I do try in all my interviews to be really dull and boring.
The thing is, I actually warn her before she does an interview.
But I do try,
and she still
don't I? No, but I try and I'm very diplomatic, then all of a sudden something will just go blah, 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 and just like come out.
Someone will ask you a question, you'll forget about me saying be careful and you'll go into it.
I just can't help it. So I'd be a lady, would I, if David got knighted? Would Brooklyn be anything? Would I be Lady Bex? I think it would be great because I think most of the time they wait till you're really sort of gone, don't they, before they knight you? And why? Wouldn't it be funny though? What would I wear?